All praises are due to Allah, and may His peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad, his entire family, his Sahaba, and all of those who follow the path of righteousness until the last day. Ameen. My team and I are not affiliated with any group or political party. These stories are our own. And dear audience, there are so many parts to my life that I'm just truly fascinated to be able to share these things. The more I talk about, the more I remember. And the memories, they keep coming and coming and coming. But here is one that I need to stop now and share before I go any further on this journey, if I live and nothing happens. In the past, while writing my book, the writing coaches insisted that I choose an audience, but I just couldn't do that because choosing one group meant I'd have to leave someone else out. Now, here I am with this podcast, and the same thing comes up again. So, I made my choice. My audience is everybody, all human beings. That's the one thing we all share. We're people. And if we open our minds and our hearts, maybe I might reach someone who never ever thought they'd be interested in what I have to say. Because at the end of the day, what I'm really sharing is my story with the hope that it can remind you of how valuable your own reflections already are. And as I said in my introduction, the teacher is always a student, and the student is always a teacher. So, I want to learn something from you. So please share your thoughts in the comments. So, welcome everybody to my podcast, From DC to Deen. And I get so tied up with writing and remembering and working and learning and teaching and such that I sometimes don't remember something that I should remember. Well, today, dear audience, before I step into the next episode, I need to pause for just a moment because I recently came across a new phrase, chef's kiss. And that's exactly how I feel about my podcast team. MashaAllah. Team, you've been such a blessing in my life, guiding me and supporting me and making this dream a reality. From my heart, thank you. And if you are not familiar with the phrase chef's kiss, let us know in the comments, and we will be more than happy to share with you its definition. And that will also give us an opportunity to interact with one another. Okay, now, dear listeners, my understanding about last week's reminder is as simple as this to me, hopefully to you, is when a person forgives others, God Himself promises a reward for that forgiveness. And if we want God to forgive and pardon us, we should do the same for others, because what we give is what we can expect to receive in return. Allah treats His servants in a manner like how they treat people. Now, brothers, sisters, the remainder of this episode will be audio only, and I want to thank you profusely for stopping by. Enjoy. Greetings of peace, everybody. Before I move on, I want to introduce myself to you. Not just the parts you might see on the surface, but some of my personality and character traits, the way I see the world, and how all of that has helped to shape my life over these past 77 years. Since I'm sharing my stories with you, I think it's important that you get to know me a little better because then the stories themselves will make more sense. Now, I don't remember every detail, the dates, years, and names, but what I do remember are the lessons. Some experiences in my life were overwhelmingly wonderful, and some not so wonderful at all. I've learned that sometimes I was drawn to things that weren't always good for me, and that was real. And at other times, I pushed away from things that probably could have been good for me, and that was just as real. I could give you plenty of examples, but if I did that, we'd be here all day. So let's move on. These lessons and experiences that I've gathered over my lifetime, they aren't about me trying to convert anyone, and they're not about judging anyone. This is just me looking back and remembering the moments that I remember, the ones that taught me and helped me learn who I am. And because of those lessons and experiences, I managed to keep a little bit of peace and harmony in my life. And for that, I truly thank God. Now, I don't know if what I will share will always connect with you right away. Maybe something I say today lands with you. Maybe it doesn't. And that's okay because as I have learned that life had a way of tailoring lessons just for me, sometimes they didn't quite fit right away. But when I was ready and mature enough for it, I realized it was made for me all along. And that meant that not every message was meant for me. But when that message touched my heart or nudged my pride, that lesson had my name on it. And I made sure to keep it in my memory bank. And I thank God for that. One of the most important things I've learned is that every single person is unique. That's part of why I chose you, all of you, as my audience, because we're all people. And really, who am I to decide who deserves to hear my story and who doesn't? Who am I to say what's useful for one person but not for another? To each his and her own. Now, there's an old saying, if the shoe fits, wear it. I learned early on that. Just because someone tells me I must do something or like something or be a certain way according to their standards, that doesn't mean I need to force it into my life. That's why I want you to know I'm not preaching to you, I'm not judging you, and I'm not here to convert you. I just want to share my space with you, a space where you can relax, feel at ease, and never feel out of place. You know, I used to, and honestly I still do, get into a lot of disputes. Most of the time it's because people expected me to be who they wanted me to be. But I just couldn't let that happen. Sure, I listened to advice, suggestions, and all that, and I appreciated them. But I wasn't going to end up being someone I didn't even recognize just to make others happy. Think about, we're all different. We're different colors, we're different shapes, come from different cultures and languages and backgrounds and religions. We like different things. We are different heights and weights and so on and so forth, you name it. And yet, at the core, we're all the same. We are all people. Let me say that again. We're all people. And I've always tried to follow my own desires, my own likes and dislikes as best as I could. But I'm human just like you. And I've done a lot of things suggested by others, and I still do sometimes. The difference now is that I know better. Sometimes I would wonder, why did I do that? But every experience, whether it was positive or negative, taught me something valuable. It helped me understand what I truly like, what I don't like, and who I am. We all at times try to impose our ways on others. And I always feel a deep kind of sadness for people who are only givers, the ones who would give their heart if they could take it out and hand it to you. Then on the other side, there are those who would take that heart and unfortunately destroy it. But, as human beings, we're all capable of so many opposites. We can be happy if we choose. We can be sad if we choose. We can walk. We can run. We can laugh. We can cry. We can do good or we can do bad. We can speak or stay silent. We can spend or save, give or takes. It's just part of being human. And the same goes for how we see people. Someone we might think of as bad or corrupt could earn the greatest reward in the hereafter. And someone who seems good and trustworthy, they might face the worst punishment. Because in Islam, it's a reminder that we really can't judge what's in someone's heart or what their outcome will be. I've done things I wish I hadn't, and avoided things I wish I had done. And the truth is, the only way I really learned those lessons was by living them. All the books in the world about swimming won't help you unless you jump in the water. Now, there were times I had to try things just for the experience itself. And believe it or not, I would even pray, God, let me try this, but keep me on the right path. Because life doesn't come with guarantees now. You might like something that isn't good for you or dislike something that could have been good for you. I remember following someone's advice and not liking how it turned out. That's when I had to really pause and ask myself, why didn't I like that? Or what does that say about me? I learned that doing things just because everyone else is doing them was not how I wanted to live my life. If I lived like that, then I would not have lived my life. I would have lived a life according to everybody else except myself. So, ideas, thoughts, suggestions, they come to us all the time, almost whimsically. If you're not paying attention, you can easily get yourself into trouble. And honestly, I've been there more times than I'd like to admit. But that's life, isn't it? You stumble, you learn, and you keep on going. Here we are now, and I'm 77 years old. Alhamdulillah. But I wasn't always this age. I was once a curious child, a restless teenager, a young woman figuring things out. And I thank God for every step of that journey. I always hoped there would have been someone wiser, someone with more experience, someone with a little more common sense than I had, someone who could teach me how to live a meaningful life on my own without leaning on anyone else. Somehow I learned how to think for myself because of that and not be arrogant. Back then, just because I wasn't always doing what everyone else was doing, I felt like I had to explain myself more. And you know what? Explaining myself helped me to really understand who I am and why I wanted to do what I wanted to do and not what everybody else wanted to do. Here's an example. When I was about 15, everybody that we hung out with started smoking cigarettes. And at that time, the popular choice of cigarettes was Cools, menthols. I tried them too, but just a couple of days later, the menthol made me sick. And I can still remember that taste after all these years. So I switched to Viceroys, Winstons, or Marlboros, non-mentholated cigarettes. My peers, though, they would tease me saying, you smoke the worst brand. You're an oddball. But honestly, they were just being teenagers, youngsters, nothing mean-spirited. And I realized I didn't like Cools. And I thought, I do want to smoke cigarettes now, but not those things. And I had a choice. Should I force myself to like what everybody else liked or stick with what I felt was right for me? And I chose me. And that small choice taught me that I could make my own decisions no matter what others thought. Now, eventually, I even made a habit of doing the opposite of what everyone else was doing, just because it was fun and I was young. And here's a little bonus that came out of the whole cigarette ordeal. Because I smoked a brand nobody else liked, that meant no one would ever ask me for a cigarette. So my packs last longer. Ha ha ha. So there was some rhyme to that reason. And now, back in the day, a pack of cigarettes cost 20 cents. That's roughly 1 penny per cigarette. But if you bought them from the cigarette machine, they were 22 cents. Now, you had to put a quarter in the machine, and 3 pennies would be inside the cellophane wrapper on the side of the pack of cigarettes. So that's where you got your change. Now, also from that experience, I learned something important. When I chose to do something, I did it because I wanted to, not because I was blindly following anyone else. Now remember, I am not claiming perfection. I have followed blindly many times in my life. But as life went on, I learned how to cut down on blind following. And again, I thank God for that. Now back then, whenever I wanted to say no, people thought I was being mean. Saying no was almost taboo. You just weren't supposed to do it. But I learned early on how to say no, nicely, firmly, or however it needed to be. However it needed to be said. And I had to learn something else too. How to accept a no from someone else. And that wasn't always easy. See, we used to say, you can dish it out, but you can't take it. That was a classic childhood cliche. Now, let me be honest. There were plenty of times I wanted to say no, but I didn't. And just as many times I wanted to say yes, but held back. And listen, I'd love for you to share your thoughts in the comments. Again, I'm not claiming to have it all figured out. I'm far from that. And as I started to really learn how to live my life the way I wanted and still be part of the groups around me, something surprisingly happened. People started wanting to follow me. Why? Because I was always doing things that everyone else was not doing. And before I knew it, I was being elected organizer of events. And you know what? that felt just fine to me. I didn't always get attention for my looks, so I found it in the "you be the leader" department. And that meant even more. At the time, none of us teenagers really realized what was happening. We were not trying to be deceitful or scheming. We were just being teenagers, looking to have as much fun as possible. It was like the house that everybody liked to go to because of the atmosphere. Columbia Road with my cousins was where all the happenings were. So later in life, I understood that I was naturally drawn to be a teacher and a leader. But I also learned that there would be times I needed to be a student and a follower too. And for that growth and development, I thank God. As for me personally, well, as you can see, I'm dark skinned. And back in the day, I weighed about 100 pounds soaking wet. And I really had to learn how to like myself and not compare myself to my friends or peers. I had to understand that I was good looking too, and that I didn't need to look like someone else or have the same skin color, hair type, or features to be beautiful. And I already knew that no two people were alike, but I had to really accept that before I could truly accept my own self. And let me tell you, that wasn't always easy. I was often surrounded by girls my age, my friends, my peers, light skin, maybe dark skin as well, bodies that had developed nicely, or maybe they had not developed yet, like me, and some who were considered very good looking, and some who were not considered good looking. Naturally, the physically good looking girls got a lot of attention at parties and social events. Now, I was always a socialite. I was always very popular and loved by most of the people that I met. But when it came to the looks, I had to figure out how to love myself and appreciate my own beauty. Now, nobody ever told me I had to look a certain way. That was all me, assuming the world was judging me. Because let's be honest, people do notice outward beauty first. And I had to learn to like my dark skin, my thin frame, and my overall appearance. And once I realized I was physically beautiful, I started to let it shine. But when it came to competition, well, whatever the competition was, I was confident in that area and I held my ground. But in the looks department, I had to make myself feel comfortable, to feel just as important as those people who were around me. Now remember this, they never judged me. But with the boys, as I said earlier, you could see who got the first dance and who didn't. But still, I learned to hold my own. And my first husband, well, he helped me along the way. More on that story in another episode, if God wills. What I learned in life, to me, this is not proven anywhere. I just assumed it and believed it, is that God gives each of us a talent or a skill. It's up to us to recognize it, nurture it, and let it grow. And that's what becomes something we're truly good at in life. Alhamdulillah, I love people. Even at a young age, I learned how to connect with others, how to be a people pleaser and a people person without all of the fluff or pretending. And as I grew, my people skills continued to improve. And even today, they're still growing. But remember, Nothing in this world is perfect except God. So I do my best. I learn, I grow, and I'm grateful for that gift. Now, I also learned that I don't have to like someone just because they hang around with my best friends or because society says I should. But one thing I learned from my grandmother is that every human being deserves respect, whether you like them or not. And so it's always been important for me to give everybody respect to the best of my ability. Now, another thing. Have you ever seen a commercial where a celebrity swears at a product and you're supposed to buy it just because they do? I don't believe the hype. Now, here's a little challenge. Go sit with yourself. No phone, no MacBook, no AirPods, just you for 30 minutes. Can you do it? I promise you, a lot of thoughts will pop up. But if a tear comes, let it come. And if you feel like boo-hooing, let the tears flow. And besides, when was the last time you had a good, honest boo-hoo cry only because you were truly grateful for something? Now, you might learn something new about yourself, or you might just enjoy the quiet time with yourself. And here's another thing that helped me stay focused and keep turning the page. Can I go back to yesterday and change it? Or guarantee tomorrow? Nope. Why? Because yesterday is gone. And tomorrow, well, it might not come. So today, right now, is all I really have. Therefore, if I live to see the next day, I like to try and make it better than yesterday in whatever it is I think I missed out on doing yesterday, if that makes sense. Now, I saw a t-shirt recently. It said, I'm not mean. I just have the guts to say what others are just thinking. I love that. Think about it. How often do we hold back? For instance, sitting in a class, wanting to ask a question, but stopping ourselves with thoughts like, shouldn't you already know that? Are you crazy? You're going to ask that stupid question? Weren't you listening? Now, for me, I always remind my students and myself that if you don't know something and you want to learn and there's someone who can help you, then ask. That's never a stupid question. The only stupid questions are the ones you don't ask. Let people think what they want, because when you do ask the question, chances are they'll learn something from your question too. Now, how many times have you done that? Missed out on the answer that you really needed. If you ask me, I've done it far too many times. Now that you have a pretty good idea of who I am, I'll stop here and continue in the next episode if I live and nothing happens. Now, remember, this is just the beginning of the journey from DC to Deen. I have 30, nope, stop. I have 77 years to summarize, 30 years before my transformation to the Deen. Thank you all for your visit. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your thumbs up. And thank you for your comments. Oh, our reminder for the upcoming week is, while we are reminded to thank God for the things He grants us when we asked for them, we must also remember to thank God for the things He blessed us with when we didn't even ask for them. Until the next time, peace.